Okay, good morning everybody, and Chazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us. Today's class has been sponsored anonymously for the refuah shalima of all of Am Yisrael. Rabotai, Perashat Shoftim. Our Perashat tells us about the commandment to set up judges and officers in our cities. Okay, we spoke yesterday a little bit about that idea and what is the Shoftim and the Sanhedrin and the authority that they have to institute Torah laws, to institute new laws, the Rabbanans that we call them. The parasha, after just 3 psukim, all of a sudden throws in a random pasuk that almost seems to do nothing with anything. Okay? So take a look. The pasuk says, Lo tita lecha asherah kol etz. Okay, here we are, chapter 16, pasuk 21. End of the chapter, right in the beginning of our parasha. You shall not plant for yourself an asherah tree. An asherah was a form of avodah zarah. They either bowed to it or they swept in front of it. Something to do with avodah zarah, to idolatry. You're not allowed to plant an idolatrous tree or kol etz. Any tree for that matter. Any tree. Etzel Mizbach Adonai Elohecha asher ta'aseh lach. Okay. Very interesting pasuk. Very interesting halacha. You're not allowed to plant an asherah tree or any tree near the Mizbayach. We know that in the temple. Okay, everyone, I want you to imagine the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. There was a Mizbayach there, right? Not allowed to plant a tree next to the Mizbayach. Okay? So no Christmas trees next to menorahs. You're not allowed to have none of that action. Okay? No tree next to the Mizbayach. Okay. Why is that here? What is it doing near the paragraph of Judges? Okay? That's about. Number 2, why is the pasuk specifying asherah tree? The avodah zarah tree, where a minute later it's going to say any tree. If you're going to say any tree, so just leave it at that. And number 3, what's wrong with planting a regular tree? You know, trees are very nice. Landscaping. No, maybe the Beit HaMikdash could use some landscaping. I don't know. Make it look nice. People coming from all over the world. Plant beautiful, cedar trees, different types of plants, different colors in the fall. Beautiful. You ever go to Central Park in the fall? Fantastic. What's wrong with having all these beautiful colors next to the Mizbayach? Give it some light, give it some color. Okay, 3 questions. Okay, number 1, again, what's this doing here? Number 2, why specify asherah? And number 3, what's wrong with having a regular non-idolatrous tree? Meaning, I understand if it's an idolatry tree, not to have it. Fine, you can't mix. That makes sense. But a regular tree, why can't I put that in the Mizbayach? What's wrong with some gardening? Okay? There is a Gemara, and this is addressed by some commentaries quoting the Gemara, and they point out, you know what this is doing here? This is to tell you, anyone that appoints a judge who is improper, because the parasha begins with judges. If you appoint a judge that's improper, that's tantamount to planting an asherah tree near the Mizbayach. Okay? If you have a corrupt judge, a corrupt leader, okay, maybe that's current events, I don't know. But if you have something that's corrupt, a corrupt judge is equal to planting an asherah tree near the Mizbayach. And the question is, what does one have to do with the other? How are they connected in any way, shape, or form? One is avodah zarah, and one is a judge that is biased, or takes bribes, or immoral, or whatever it is. How does one, they're both wrong, but how are they connected? Rabbi Bernstein, quoting the Meshech Chochmah, answers very, very important idea. And something that I think we could copy and paste to many areas of our Torah observance. Rabotai, what are korbanot all about? The Mizbayach, right, where we bring sacrifices. What are they all about? What's the goal of korbanot? If we could simplify the question, who do korbanot benefit? Now, it's important to remember that not only do we Jews bring korbanot, even non-Jews bring korbanot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה baro. Ki beti bet tefila yikare lechol ha'amim. The house of God is for all people. It's not limited to Jews. It's something that actually is very unique. We weren't exclusive. The Jewish people said, you could remain a non-Jew and bring sacrifices. We don't force you to come over to our side. You could talk to God, stay a non-Jew, that's fine. We accepted sacrifices from everyone. Obviously, we have to make sure that it wasn't bowed down or worshipped to. But if we knew it was a clean animal, we brought it. What was the intention of Goyim to bring korbanot? By the way, you should remember also what the Rambam writes, that korbanot existed before the Torah was given. Remember that? The idea of bringing a korban is not something that the Jews invented. Adam's son, Cain, brought a korban. Noach brought a korban. Avraham, Yitzchak, they brought korbanot. Korbanot was things that people did to connect to a deity. Why do the Goyim bring korbanot? You know what's their motivation? Or what do they believe? He says very interesting. Says the Meshech Chochmah, the Goyim believe in many gods. Now what does that mean, many gods? That means there's a lot of gods, and because there's many of them, there's some type of struggle going on. Who's going to be on top? Who's the most powerful? Who's going to be the most loved God? Who's going to be the most worshipped God? Who's going to be the most powerful? And in order for one God to have an edge over another God, this is what the Goyim believe, we need to empower them. So here's what's going on. I go over to a certain God and I say, listen, you are fighting with this other God, okay? I'll bow to you, I'll worship you, I'll empower you, I'll make you feel good. And in return, you give me rain, you give me money, you give me marriage, you give me love. So I'm going to now benefit you, and then you benefit me. It's a quid pro quo relationship. Okay? You're a God fighting for my allegiance. I'll give it to you, but I want certain things in return. A korban, according to the non-Jews, is making the gods happy, and then the gods make you happy. That's what the Goyim believe in. But that's not how we view korbanot. As Jews, we realize and we understand and we believe Hashem Echad. There's only one. There's no struggle for power. I cannot empower him. I don't bring korbanot to give him strength over something else. There's no one else to give him strength over. He's not in competition. So why do I bring a korban? If I'm not benefiting God, then who am I benefiting? The answer is the korban benefits us. And that is many ways to understand how that is. But simply you can understand that when we bring a korban, we see what happens to an animal and we internalize, oh my gosh, that should have been me. I should have been the one getting killed and burned on the altar and skinned and horrible things. And so the person he has an awakening. Or if you understand like Nachmanides, like the Ramban, that the point of a korban is to align all the different worlds that are, the physical and the spiritual, so that we could align the pipes for berachah to come down, whatever's going on. But the korbanot, when I bring a sacrifice, God does not need it. I'm not doing it for him. I cannot empower him. I cannot make him feel good. The korbanot are for me. And this is actually something very important that sometimes we forget when it comes to mitzvot, when it comes to tefillah. We think we're doing God a favor. We have to remember, God doesn't need my prayer. Prayer is something that I need. Prayer is a gift that God gave me. God says, listen, you need help? Something that you want? I'm going to give you a chance to pray. Ask away. I'll let you do whatever you want. You can ask for things and you can get it. The goal of prayer is for us to benefit, for us to ask Hashem, for us to get in touch with life and to regroup and to realign ourselves with the right values, etc. And that's the goal of korbanot. You know, it's something very interesting. We know God has primarily two names, Elokim and Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem, and Elokim. It's something that is, you'll notice, and I challenge you, go back to Vayikra, look throughout korbanot. Which name of God is the one that's used by every korban without fail, without exception? The name Yud Kei Vav Kei. The name of Elokim is never mentioned by korbanot. How come? Why don't we use the name Elokim? What's wrong with using that name by korbanot? Well, what does El mean? What's Eloah mean? El actually means a force, a power. Now, El, when we use it in regards to Hashem, we don't pronounce Aleph Lamed, we say Kel or Elokim. We don't want to say it because it's God's name. But it's very possible to use the word in reference to people or a judge. A judge is called an Elohim. And by the way, if you're referring to judges or any other physical natural force, you should say it Elohim without the kuf instead of the hey. Because once you say Elokim, you should just know, why do we do that? Why do we say Elokim? Because we don't want to say God's name. But if you're talking about a judge and you say Elokim, that's actually disrespecting Hashem. Because it's like calling the judge Eloah, which we're not doing. We're calling him just a force. He's powerful. So when we're using the name in regards to people, we should say it Elohim as it's written. Okay, it's an interesting point. But when we call God Elohim, over here we're referring to Hashem as the ultimate force, the ultimate power, the final say. And the reason we don't want to use the name Elokim by korbanot, says Rabbi Bernstein, is because we don't want people to think that by bringing a korban, I'm empowering him. We stay away from the word of power because that's not the goal of a korban. I'm not giving Hashem power. Actually, the opposite. Yud Kei Vav Kei. He is the source, and behind all existence, all forces come from him. I'm not benefiting him with this korban. You know who I'm benefiting with this korban? Me. Okay, we got the intro? Makes sense? Okay, again, just to quickly recap. According to the non-Jews, when we bring a korban, it's for Hashem, so that we can empower him. According to us, when we bring a korban, it's for us, because we cannot empower Hashem. He's already perfect. What is a Mizbayach made out of? Very interesting. Mizbayach is made out of stones. Okay? The Torah says you can't plant a tree next to a Mizbayach. A tree represents growth, movement. Stones are the opposite. Stones don't grow. They don't change. A stone is a stone. It will always stay the same stone unless something outside of it, impacts it, breaking it, or like water, whatever it is. But a rock it's an inanimate object. Right? We've discussed before the different levels in the world that we live in. The lowest level is domim, inanimate objects. Stone is one of them. Okay? Higher above that is tzomeach. Tzomeach means to plant, to grow, to sprout. Okay? Trees grow, trees change, trees move. They could grow or they could shrink. A stone never moves. Hashem, we have to remember, is like a stone. Hashem doesn't change. By the way, one of God's names is Tzur. Okay, you may recognize the song when we're done eating. Tzur mi shelo achalnu. Or if you're Ashkenaz, Tzur mi shelo achalnu. Okay? Tzur mi shelo achalnu. What does that mean? Tzur. Tzur is a rock. Hashem, one of the names of God, is a rock. Another name of God is also Selah. Selah is also a rock. And so, when we call God a rock, Tzur mishelo achalnu. The rock who we ate from his plate. We ate from his table. Okay? Why are we calling God a rock? Like a rock. Oh, like a rock, right? What does it mean, like a rock? God's like a rock. It means that God doesn't change. Lo shiniti. God doesn't get older. He doesn't get younger. We cannot affect his mood. He is perfect. Never sad, never happy. Okay, we have to know that. We're not allowed to believe ever that God has mood swings, or that God could be altered, or changed, or empowered. You know, when we say a bracha, we say the words Baruch Atah Hashem. We have to be very careful. We're not blessing him. We cannot bless him. We cannot empower him. We cannot give him greater. We are saying, Baruch, you are the source of blessing. You are already blessed. That's what we're saying. We're not blessing him. When I give a bracha to somebody, I'm saying, I bless you that you should one day become. We cannot bless God in that sense. So the Torah says, be very careful not to plant a tree next to the Mizbayach. The Mizbayach represents Hashem, who does not change. A tree represents change. Don't put a tree that grows and changes, because that's how the Goyim view God. It's very interesting because the image that we think of when we think of the non-Jewish holiday is a tree. Okay? But maybe that's where it comes from. Actually, the sources of the tree actually come from the nation called the Ashurim, who worshipped asherah. The asherah tree, that's kind of what it is. That is the what does asherah mean? Asher actually means, right, if you speak Hebrew, osher with an aleph, not ayin. Ayin means rich. But sometimes you may write to somebody or bless someone, I bless you with osher and osher. One with an ayin, one with an aleph. If you're Ashkenaz, it may sound the same. Osher and osher. But if you're Sfaradi, osher and osher. What's the difference? Osher is rich, wealth. Osher is ashrei yoshvei betecha. What's aleph? From the word to confirm, or happy, or strengthen. Yashar kochacha. Shkoyach. Right? Shkoyach is just Yashar kochacha, said very fast, and maybe the guy was a little bit lazy, so he couldn't say Yashar kochacha, so he just said Yashkoyach. Shkoyach. Right? That's where it comes from. Shkoyach is Yashar kochacha. To confirm your strength. The asherah tree represents the Goyim's mentality that we can strengthen God by bringing him sacrifices. We empower you. That's what asherah is. That's why we cannot plant an asherah or any tree. Don't think that you are going to now elevate God in any way. You're not doing this for him. We're doing it for ourselves, okay? That's beautiful. So now we understand why we can't plant a tree next to the Mizbayach. The Mizbayach is stones that don't alter. That's Hashem. They don't move. They don't change. Hashem is like stone, not like a tree. Okay? Now, what does this have to do with, going back to our parasha, what does it have to do with judges? Whoever appoints a judge who is inappropriate is like a tree, planting a tree next to the Mizbayach. What does one have to do with the other? Why should one be a judge? Well, there's many reasons why one may become a leader, but only one of them is the right one. The right reason to become a leader is to serve the people. Okay? Now, that's not always the reason people become leaders. Sometimes, unfortunately, people become leaders because they want money, they want honor, they want power. Torah says that a leader, you should only become a leader for one reason, to serve the people. It's true with any type of leadership, including a rabbi. A rabbi that becomes a rabbi because he wants to receive honor and kavod, that's ulterior motives. That's not the right reason to become a rabbi. That's not the right reason to become a leader in a community. Okay? The Gemara says that there was once a rabbi that he appointed his student to be the head of the synagogue. And the student got excited. And the rabbi said, why are you excited? You think I'm giving you honor? I'm giving you obligations. I'm giving you a duty. It's not easy to be a leader. A real leader, it's exhausting. Moshe Rabbeinu, he was exhausted at the end of each day because he was here to serve the people. That's a true leader. A person who becomes a leader to take and to receive benefits, he is like an asherah. An asherah tree is giving benefit to the other person. That's what we think we are empowering. The judge should be like stone. Don't use the position to self-aggrandize. Don't use it to grow. Don't use it to become for yourself. You should be like God in a way. Why does God do things? For himself? No. He's like a rock. Hashem doesn't change. A judge should do it for the people. Hamishpat le'elokim hu. Simply that means that it's up to God to judge. But it's talking to the judges and it's telling them, emulate God, do it like God, be like God, to give, not to become the recipient, not to receive. That's not why you become in a position. It's like a parent. A parent doesn't have children so their children can serve them. That's a big mistake. A parent becomes a parent in order to give. That's the only reason we want children, to give them. Or else we're being like a tree, not like a stone. Our rabbis say, Kol hadan din emet la'amito. Anybody who judges a case truthfully, emet la'amito, na'aseh shutaf, is a partner with God in creation. What does that mean? If you judge a case truthfully, emet la'amito, you become a partner. Well, the element that he becomes like a partner is learned from Yitro. Yitro, it says he saw Moshe standing on his feet, judging from Boker ad Erev, from morning to night. Now those words, Boker and Erev, should remind us, Vahi Erev, Vahi Boker. Right? That's the episode of creation. So whoever is judging properly is a partner with God in creation. That's beautiful. But what does the phrase mean? Emet la'amito. Whoever judges a case truthfully to its truthfulness. Emet la'amito. What's the double emet? Well, one emet is to judge correctly, honestly. La'amito means for the right reason. To be a judge, not just to judge properly, but to be a judge for the right motivation. Again, not for any ulterior motives. That's a very, very important lesson to not only a judge, not only to rabbis, but to all of us, because we all seek positions of leadership, whether it's in a firm, in the office, in a family. We have to remember and remind ourselves, what is our goal? Why do we want to be a leader? In order to be served or in order to serve others. The right reason is like a rock, not to receive, not to grow from the position, but simply to serve other people. I think, and then we'll end with this point, this really connects to something that's discussed later on in the Parashah. The Parashah discusses the idea of a king. And God willing, we'll discuss maybe Beli Neder, the king, at another time, maybe tomorrow or Friday, if God willing. Beli Neder. But what is the idea of a king? The Pasuk says that the king has to be very careful. Not to have too many horses, not to become too arrogant, not too many wives, not too much money. He has to have 2 Sefer Torahs, not just one. One that he has and one that he takes with him wherever he goes. The Pasuk says, Vehaya keshifto, and it will be that when the king is established, okay, this is going to be in chapter 17, Pasuk 14. Place upon yourselves a king, and the Pasuk reads, right, not too many things, too many horses and wives, etc. Pasuk 18, Vehaya keshifto al kiseh mamlachto. It shall be that when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself 2 copies of the Torah. What does that mean? Keshivto. Ke, in Hebrew, we know means like. If you read that literally, it says, it shall be that when he's almost sitting, when he almost becomes the king, when he's like the king. What does it mean, like when he's like the king? Is he the king or not? When he's like the king. What does that mean when he's like the king? He is the king. Or he's not. He can't be like a king. Okay? There's many answers to this question. The Ibn Ezra says, Ke could mean right when his kingship begins. Like, what's his proof? Ka'alot haminha. Right when mincha began. Or kaharimoti koli, Eshet Potifar says, right when I raised my voice, Yosef ran out of the house. Right? So ka could mean right in the beginning, in the early stages. So Ibn Ezra says very simply, Keshifto, right away when he becomes king. Meaning don't wait a year or two to write a Sefer Torah when you become the king. Write it right away. Okay. Rav Yonatan Eibshit says something a little bit deeper. We find the word Ke by Achashverosh. It says Keshevet HaMelech Achashverosh. When Achashverosh sat on the throne. What's Ke mean over there? Our rabbis say Achashverosh was very paranoid. He was always worried about a coup happening. Someone's going to try to throw him off. He was always uneasy. He was always nervous. He had the kingship, but he felt like he may not have it tomorrow. Says Rav Yonatan Eibshitz, a Jewish king should always feel Keshivto, the same way Achashverosh felt. Always feel insecure. Don't be confident. You know what happens a lot of times in politics, we see it all the time. They get up there and they promise the world, we're going to give you this, we're going to make that. They promise a utopia from here till tomorrow. And in the beginning they do it because they have to prove. And unfortunately, once they get voted in, they don't need your vote anymore, and they're out. They check out till lunch. You don't see them, and there's very little accomplished afterwards. The Torah says to a king, don't do that. You should always feel like you need their vote. You should always feel like you're in the balance, in the limbo. Ke shivto. Like you're about to be voted, but you're not really voted. You should always feel like you're in between. Kind of like we feel in Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. Right? How do we feel as Jews in the 10 days? Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, we're very careful. We don't eat out, even if usually we do. We're not to speak Lashon Hara. We keep Shabbat, right? We're very careful that week. Because we know we're being watched and we need a vote. We need Hashem's good verdict. The Torah says to a king, don't just, wait till you became the king and then remain dormant for the rest of the year. Do, accomplish, become active. Our rabbi said that a person should always feel like he's half innocent, half guilty, and your next step will either tilt you to the good side or to the bad side. We should never feel settled. We should always look to do better, always look to grow. Very important lesson. Ke shivto. Like, but not like. You are the king, but you should feel like you're not. Always try to impress, always try to improve, always try to do better. A lot of times you see this in a marriage. It's unbelievable when a couple is engaged, right? What happens? The guy is buying gifts, whining and dining and honeydew and honey I love and what could I do for you and what could I get you, and buying her gifts, and she's always dressed to impress, and everyone's on their best and finest. And something happens the second they get married, and all of a sudden the compliments stop. The gifts are very rare, once a year on the anniversary maybe, and both sides are guilty. But what happened? What happened was, I needed to get your vote. I needed to get your marriage. I do. I need you to say the words I do. And once I did, I don't have to get you anymore. I don't have to win you over. I already won. I don't have to impress you. A person should always feel in their marriage like I'm engaged. She could break it up in any second. I have to always try to impress her, always try to win her over. The girl should always feel like I should try to win him over. He may drop me. Again, not in a bad way. Not in a depressing way. In a positive way, in a spiritual way. We should always feel like I'm trying to impress. What happens is we get content. Familiarity breeds contempt. Right? When I get too familiar with somebody and I kind of already secured the marriage, I've secured the vote, I've secured the kingship. Says the Torah, don't feel like that. Ke shivto, you should always feel like you could lose it in a second. On a similar note, says the Imre Emet, he should always remain idealistic like he was in the beginning. Right? Again, in a marriage, right? You begin a marriage, you're idealistic. I'm going to do this, I'm going to have that. We start the year idealistic. We have a resolution, I have a plan, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a better Jew. I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to stop Lashon Hara. I'm going to become more Shomer Shabbat and a better friend and a better... Right? A king begins idealistic. A leader, a rabbi. I'm going to do this for the community. I'm going to build that. The Torah always wants us to remain like that. Ke shivto. Don't, right? Now that you're the king, forget about all of your promises. Remember, it's not about you becoming the king. It's about the people and them growing. That's actually the difference between malchut and mamlacha. Two words that are very similar. What's the difference? Malchut and mamlacha. Malchut is kingship. Mamlacha is kingdom. One's about the person, one's about the people. One's about the king, one's about the nation. The pasuk says, "Vehaya keshivto al kiseh," not malchuto. It's not about you. It was never about you. Mamlachto. It's always about the people. That is the message of the Torah to a king. To be like a rock. It's not about you growing. Not about you changing. Not about you receiving prestige and honor and money and a salary. And now your name is written as a leader of the community. That's not what it's about. And if it is, it's like an asherah tree. You're utilizing this for yourself. You're taking advantage of something holy, of the people, of a community, and you're using it for your own growth. Don't be like an asherah. Don't be like a tree in that sense. You should be like Hashem. Be like a rock. You're stable. You're not looking to gain from this relationship. You're looking to give. So that's the goal of a leader. That's a dayan. That's emet la'amito. That's a judge that's truthful. He's judging truthfully and he's judging for the right reasons. That is, I think, a very powerful and beautiful lesson, an important lesson for all of us. Again, we're all looking to be leaders. We have to always constantly remind ourselves, it's not about me, it's about the other people that I am serving. And so long that that's the goal, we will always have the blessing of Hashem behind us. Okay, we'll stop over here. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.